You have to be hard on yourself if you're an indie filmmaker starting out. The people who are watching your films are your friends and your family. These are people that want to support you, so they're going to tell you that it's great. They're not going to be completely honest.
At the start, you're like letting the characters do the work, but up to a point.
Yeah.
After that, the characters take on their own life and you're just recording what they are saying.
I play guitar too.
That's really cool.
We should jam sometime. Maybe next time we'll do this, we'll have two guitars and we'll just jam it out.
And just play something in between whenever you're bored.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for coming. It's really fun. Well, I'm Om Bidhalan. I'm a filmmaker. I love talking about filmmaking and films in general. And this is what the podcast is about. I have David Ramer here. We studied together at the New York Film Academy, and since then we have been making films on our own and have won at a lot of movie festivals. So thank you so much for coming here tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Om. It's a pleasure to be here. Happy to be here. Yeah.
So let me start with this. Now we are in a place where we get to make films, where whatever limited budget that we have, but let's think about a younger 12-year-old, 16-year-old, 20-year-old person who wants to make your younger version. He wants to make a movie on his own. So what advice would you give, or what are the steps that kind of you would recommend for him?
I know, I think every generation says this, but I think the first thing that's different now is technology. And I think even my dad, when I talk to my dad, he talks about his generation and access to technology and things like that and how it's changed. But when I was that age, like we're talking like 14, 15, getting into filmmaking, I used like DV tape. You remember that? Like the mini DV tape you'd put in the little camera?
Yeah.
Like that's what I had. Or I'd steal my mom's VHS camera and, try and use that with the big VHS tapes. But it's much, much easier now with technology to make a film. I know Steven Spielberg has gone on record and said, hey, you can use what's in your pocket. You can use your iPhone, So the biggest thing is like getting your voice out there. And if you're conveying an idea, if you have a story to tell, and if you want to convey that, I don't think you have to worry about gear and budget. You can use your phone. And that's the difference between, our generation, right, and generation now. Kids who want to be filmmakers now, they can do it. They can do it after school, get their friends together, get their iPhone and shoot a movie. So it's kind of the biggest difference I've seen. Yeah.
That's interesting.
How about you? I'm going to throw the same question back at you. How do you kind of identify with that?
Well, if I have to say that it's important, as you said, to get into the practice of making movies. I mean, at the start, I remember when I was making a film, I didn't know what the film should be. Like, it was just like, I'm just going to write a film about a character going home from school.
Yeah.
And I just thought, okay, he'll just go home. But I didn't know that, there should be conflicts. Like, there should be a story in that.
Yeah. No, definitely. I can totally relate to that as a kid.
Yeah, I just thought, okay, that's all I have to do. Just film this person going from place A to place B.
Yeah.
And then I realized, like, as I made this film that, oh, this is just so dull. And then, there was this journey where, how do I make this interesting?
You're right.
And then I'm like, okay, maybe what if I make this person miss his train? Okay, then you have some interest in that. So that's the first element which I felt like adding. Then the second thing was like, okay, what if he loses his wallet? And then I thought, okay,
there you go.
Now you lose your wallet and now you don't have any other way to go and you've missed your train. So I thought that this organically I came up with the concept of story in general. So I think for me, what I would like to say is, if you just write, and then it doesn't matter where you're filming on.
Exactly. I think I had a similar journey where the first thing I would think about is visuals. I was so stimulated by thinking about shots and visuals from when I was like 10 years old. I think when I was around that age, a lot of great cinema was coming out, and I was seeing a lot of impactful visuals, and that's the first thing I thought of. And then when I went to New York Film Academy, I was still thinking that way when we met until we had our first screenwriting class.
I see.
And then I really learned that, oh, wait a minute. I don't love these movies because they look cool. I love these movies because I'm connecting with them on an emotional level. That's what's drawing me in. That's what's, because it's getting to my heart. It's getting to my emotion. Like, I love Titanic, and I hear the Celine Dion, you know, the Irish flute and all that, and that gives me chills because I know the story between Jack and Rose. I know their love for each other. It's not the cool shots of the ship breaking in half that I remember. It's the love in the story. So yeah, I definitely think that young filmmakers will want to be cinematographers maybe first, like before they discover story. But story is the first and foremost, most important fundamental thing before a camera or anything else. If you don't have a good story, and if you just want to make something with cool shots,
it's not gonna work.
Maybe do a music video. Just kidding. Music video should have story too. Always.
Yeah, I agree.
I think.
Yeah.
That's a bold statement, but.
So you mentioned you started when you were 10. You started that early?
I started, just playing with my mom's camera because I was just obsessed with, thinking about it. And from age like 4 and 5, we would have these movie nights with my mom and I. I was raised by a single mom, and she would, we'd sit down in front of the TV and she would pause scenes and then explain them.
Okay.
Because she'd worked on a lot of sets. She's a screenwriter. So I kind of always had a behind-the-scenes approach to movies. Like, when I'd watch them at home with my mom, and she would, often explain what was going on. If there was a scene, I was pretty young. I was like 4 or 5 when I saw Titanic. And she actually would pause the movie and explain to me that all those people are extras. They were paid $50 a day. They're not really in pain. They're not really, drowning. And then she'd say, okay, tell me which actor is doing really good. And then she'd play the movie. And I'd be like, oh, that guy's doing really good. He really looks like he's drowning, So my brain was wired to think about movies in that way from like age 4 and 5.
That's
to think about it as a filmmaker and as someone who was behind the scenes versus an audience. So I've kind of carried that with me through watching movies my whole life. But
that's a long time.
But I want to ask you, like, you grew up in India, and what was your access to cinema? What was your access to cameras? Like, how did you, first of all, what inspired you to like want to be a filmmaker yourself? And second, like, how did you make that happen? Like, did you go out and buy a camera? Did you have a friend with one? What was that like?
Sure. I grew up in Mumbai, so that's where the entire Indian film industry is centered. And
Bollywood, right?
yes,
Yep.
That's correct. And well, I grew up watching films just as you, but that was the more traditional Indian mainstream cinema, which kind of are called the popular films with big stars and a lot of money thrown. I think when I was like 18, I discovered a new world of cinema. Like, I took this course called World Cinema, where I saw some crazy films across the world since the invention of film in general. I saw the Lumiere brothers films. I saw Eisenstein's Battleship Potemkin. I saw the Italian neorealism and, everything that was happening. There's Bergman and all of that. And that just blew my mind away. That I was just so restricted in my vision of what cinema is. Yes. And I think that really just changed me altogether. So I think that made me want to just go deep into all of these worlds and just study more. I think that's probably around 2016 where it just came to me that, okay, this is it. This is what I want to do. And I just went around. We had a film club. So that's what helped us in getting the equipments. We had good sound equipments, cameras. We had good actors as well. We had a theater club where there were people acting.
This is in high school?
This is in my undergrad.
That is so cool.
Yeah, exactly.
So you had access to equipment
we
right
had
off
a film club here, and next to it we had a theater club. Right next to it we had a music club. Right next to it we had like a like a
Amazing.
painting club. So, we could
Yeah.
just call up on people and like, yo, just act for this scene and we
Mhm.
want to cast you. And
I
then
love that.
and then we had music rooms in our school as well.
Mhm.
So we used to kind of just record with musicians. We had bands who were playing around. So I think that just gave us a lot of access to filmmaking.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And what was like the first like short film you did? I know you talked about the guy walking home from school, and then you obviously put in stuff like maybe he loses his wallet or something like that and figure out the writing process. But was that your first short that you made?
The first short that I made by myself was in 2018. I made like a couple of music videos in 2016. I worked with people like in a collaborative way where we all are kind of the directors, kind of what we did at NYFA. Everybody's working together as a team. But my first individual film that I made was in 2018. It's a pretty cool story. It's called Work of Art. And yeah, it's really chill. It's about a guy who's heartbroken because of a girl. And it's about how he's trying to win her back and how his friends are kind of just talking him into
I love the
an
title.
outfit. That's the only good feedback I got after
Oh my
screening my
gosh.
movie.
Brutal.
That's a good title.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, how about you? Do you remember making your first film? Like, tell me about it.
Yeah, I do. I was 13, and my mother was dating a guy at the time, and he would kind of see me with my friends after school making movies, and he lived with us at the time, and he was like, "Hey, that's pretty cool. Like, let me get in on that. I've kind of always wanted to be an actor." I was like, "Really? Okay." So we came up with an idea. While we were totally snowed in, we had like the worst snowstorm ever this winter. Snow was piled up so high they weren't picking up garbage for like a week because the garbage trucks couldn't even get to the to pick up that's how much snow there was. So we were snowed in, and of course I want to make a movie because we were snowed in. And my mother was directing a theater at the time and writing children's theater and putting shows together. So we had tons and tons of costumes and props in the house.
Nice.
Like my mom always has prop boxes. We were always dressing up as kids. So I went into her prop box. I got some wigs. I got like a fake sword, and I handed it to her boyfriend at the time. And I said, "Hey, let's make a movie." And the title of the film was Nightmare in Suburbia. And it starred me, and I think he held the camera when I was acting, and I held the camera when he was acting. And it was just about him. It was a little like horror thriller. I think it was like 15 minutes though.
Wow. Did you write it? Did you write it?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, we wrote it
cool.
together. There was a trailer.
I see.
It was everything, but it was just, camcorder home movie. And that was like the first one that I actually got to I had tried to edit with Windows Movie Maker. I don't know if you're familiar. Shout out to Windows Movie Maker. But now we have things that are much, much better. We have CapCut, we have Final Cut, DaVinci Resolve, which is free, which is amazing. I prefer CapCut. I've talked to some people who are starting out with editing, and I send them to CapCut. I'm like, if you want something easy,
Sure.
edit in CapCut. But we didn't have that then. So it was DV tape that I had to convert to digital with Firewire, if you remember that.
I see.
Old school.
Oh, yeah.
But that was the first, Nightmare in Suburbia was the first film that I actually sat down and cut together
Can
and
people
figured
see
it out.
Do you have it?
Oh God, no. I'm not going to show that to anybody.
Do you have it?
Maybe we'll have a screening. Maybe
yeah.
at some point we'll have a screening. I don't even think my close friends have seen it. Like,
That's cool.
I
That's like
bet-
a long time ago.
oh my God, 2007 or 8. So I was like
Wow.
13. Yeah,
Wow.
I know.
And and when did you decide that, like, you're going to be a filmmaker? This is what I want to do.
I think then.
Yeah?
I think right then, as I was editing the movie, I was like, okay, yeah, I want to do this. And I just kept I would film myself in my mom's house, in our house, just like doing action scenes or doing this or doing that, or just like doing tests, doing camera movements. I remember I had a 3-legged tripod and I collapsed like the front leg, and I would just do like dolly moves with it just to like emulate Hollywood, just to emulate.
Nice.
It sounds kind of silly. I did stop motion animation with I was really into wrestling too, like WWE. When I was like
Of course.
10,
Yeah, me
11.
too.
I learned stop motion animation. I did that for a
Yeah.
while. Just like in my bedroom,
Sure.
bored, with the camera. So,
Sure. You know,
But
that's so interesting because I got my, like, once I went to high school and all of that, I got my own DSLR as well. And every Sunday or once or twice a week, I used to give myself assignments that go with your camera and shoot like 200 to 250 pictures. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to
Right.
be anything.
I love
Just
that.
go out there. So I used to
Yeah.
catch this 5 a.m. train to where I live, like in Mumbai, and I used to go
That
around.
early?
Yeah, I still have the pictures. I like, so suppose
5 a.m.
yeah,
and you're 15.
because used to not
That's
be
pretty
crowded.
rare.
Yeah, because later it used to kind of get crowded, and I used to feel kind of awkward, shy.
You hear this, people? That's the discipline right there. A 15-year-old getting
Yeah.
up at 5 a.m., which I don't. It's pretty unheard of, but
Okay, thanks. So,
it shows your dedication to
yeah,
it from even that
sure,
age.
because
right?
I kind of wanted to develop my photography, and
Yeah.
you know, I just thought that I need to have this sense of framing. So I still have that. There's this twins in the train, and they're sleeping. So I have that picture as well. So
Wow.
I just, and then, you know, you start organically to, okay, now I want to like edit it, like as you
Yeah,
did with
yeah.
your movies. I think that started out with our journeys.
And this was all on the Canon 600D.
600D, yeah.
600D,
I still
which
have it.
is the Canon T3i for those in the US.
I see.
Yeah.
You have the same, right?
Same camera. It was the first camera that was budget friendly. It wasn't full frame. It wasn't super expensive, and it could do video, and it could do great 1080p video. And I actually started shooting a documentary on that camera when I was like 17 or 18. And welcome to New York City. This is New York City, so we're gonna hear some traffic.
Which is, you know, getting by.
Get the hell out of here!
Yeah.
Hey, get the
We
hell
keep
out of the
this-
way!
We keep this at the end.
I'm
That's
fucking walking here. What the hell you doing? Get the hell out of here. Huh?
No,
Jesus Christ.
This brings me to an interesting question.
Yeah. Let's. We
Um,
kind of went off course there.
You make good films, okay?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you
Well,
make
thank
really
you.
good films. Do you know that? Or if you know that, when was the time that you realized that, oh man, I'm not so bad at it. I'm pretty good.
I don't think I have realized that yet.
I see.
I feel like, well, you know what? Okay. I'll answer this totally honestly. I will. I feel like I give myself like a day or two to be really proud about something. And then after that day or two, I start to critique it.
I see.
I feel like you should be able to feel proud about something, but then you have to be hard on yourself, because most likely, if you're an indie filmmaker starting out, the people who are watching your films are your friends and your family, and maybe some coworkers and some people. But these are people that want to support you, so they're going to tell you that it's great.
I see.
They're not going to be completely honest sometimes. I held a screening that you were at for His Train of Thought, and it was, my mistake was I surrounded myself, my audience, with my friends, and nobody was honest. I had to call people weeks later and say, hey, what did you really think? And then they went, well, we didn't really know who the family was, and we didn't really know who this was. And then I realized I'm not done with this film. I need to go back and make changes, right? So I feel like being vulnerable and open to change and being hard on yourself can be a really good thing. So I always look back at my films as like, what did I do wrong? What were my mistakes? There's still shots I'm proud of in Train of Thought, stuff I'm like, I'm proud of that. I like that,
I
you know?
see.
So I like some shots and some things.
Yeah.
But I'm always critiquing, because if you don't critique yourself, you can't get better. You
Sure.
can't give yourself this huge pat on the back and say, that's the best work I'll ever do. Like that, to me, that's a nightmare, because then it's like, well, if that's the best I can do, then where am I going to go? So that's just how I personally feel.
Sure. And how long is His Train of Thought, the movie that you made?
Sort of 23 minutes.
And
Yeah.
I was at the screening.
Yeah.
What was the timeline then when you first watched it?
That was, it's funny you say that. That was also 23 minutes.
Okay.
But the thing was that, and this is why it's important to get your film in front of audiences, even when you think it's done. Like, don't be so eager to release a film. I think people should see it first, because here's the thing. I had been thinking about Train of Thought for so long, like the script and the idea, and I, in my head, knew the character of George. I knew the children. I knew all that. But the audience didn't, you know? They've spent only 20 minutes with this guy, and they didn't know his whole life story like I had, thinking about his life story for 6 or 7 months, working on the film and writing it and all that. So, yeah, it's important to have like a test screening. Like, to me, when I was planning it, I'm like, this is going to be the premiere, and it definitely was not the premiere. The premiere will be like next year.
I see.
But yeah, I don't know. It's really valuable. Like, feedback is so valuable, and honest feedback.
Sure.
So, it's good to push your friends and be like, come on, what'd you really think?
I have a follow-up to that. So, for the movie, what aspects of filmmaking did you handle while making this film? I mean, it could help people who are, into the process of maybe making a 20-minute film. Mm-hmm. So, could you tell us, like, how did you go about it?
The script was a combination of dreams that I had, like nightmares. I keep a dream log, and sometimes I'll wake up from a dream and be like, that would be a great scene in a movie. Like, that would make for a good film. So a lot of the ideas that I have are actually from my dreams. So I'll immediately I have an iPhone note of all my dreams, and when I wake up, I'll roll over and I'll just get the dream out as quick as I can before I forget it. So yeah, to write Train of Thought, almost all the dreams George experiences are real dreams I had.
I see.
I don't want to give any spoilers, but the train station and
how long ago was since you've been recording or keeping a note of this?
It's been years. I think I had the dreams that were in Train of Thought like 3 years ago now. So it's been a while.
And with the I've seen the movie like at the premiere, and it's visually very striking. There are some great special effects, and it's been shot in subways. There are some amazing shots that you've taken. So, I mean, how long did you film? What was the schedule like? And what was the crew and everything?
The dreams I was having were so vivid. I had a very clear vision of what the subway should look like, what the train should look like, all that. And I actually scouted New York City for the ugliest subway station. And it's on YouTube. You could go look up the ugliest subway station in the world is what it's called. And I think the video's still up. And that's the station I filmed in. Now,
do you want to name it for the audience?
Shout out to the guy who made that video. Thank you. Because that's how I found my subway station. But yeah, I saw that station and I went, oh my God, that's disgusting. That's perfect. It's beautiful.
Okay, for the movie.
For the movie.
For the movie.
I wouldn't want to hang out there too much.
I see.
If I wasn't George. Because it was kind of, a little sketchy. It wound up being fine. We shot at like 2, 3 in the morning down on the subway. And it just required a lot of planning.
I see.
Yeah, but anyway, we don't have to.
How many days of filming did it take?
Total?
Yep.
I think we did 7 days of filming.
The entire day?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
I think so. Because the film goes from winter to summer, and we shot, obviously the prologue is summer. I think we shot that in July.
Yeah, I saw that.
And then when we go a couple years later, when we meet George at the top of the stairs, and it's years later, and his life is spiraling, and he's lost his family and his job and everything. That was in the dead of winter. It was freezing cold that day. I think it was 15 degrees, and poor guy's at the top of the stairs. It was just freezing cold. I felt so bad.
Before we lose this topic on guerrilla filmmaking, we were studying together at our filmmaking class at NYFA.
Yeah.
And remember, I wanted to make a movie inside a mall. Like the film that I made, Springtime in New York. Yeah. And I remember, me pitching in class. That's what we did. And Billy asking us that, do you want to shout out to Billy?
Shout out to William Tyler Smith, our directing teacher at New York Film Academy. He was awesome.
And so I remember, where am I going to find a mall? So I asked we studied near the World Trade Center, and I remember just scouting out malls. There are tons of malls and shops around. So as I just kept on walking towards the 1st Street, 2nd Street, and I just kept on scouting for hours on days. And finally, I found a place near the 34th Street. It's a cool mall.
Mm-hmm.
And then another place near the Oculus, so which has the escalator. So that adds depth.
Oh, really? That's a
Yeah.
whole separate.
Yeah.
Oh, I
so,
never realized those are two different locations.
So
Yeah.
it was just so amazing to have that, and that person let us film it.
Mhm.
And it's so crazy that at one point that manager comes to me and says, "Hi, if you want to use the fitting room, you can. I've closed it for you."
Wow.
Yeah, that was just unbelievable.
I mean, I love when things like that happen because I was so stressed and also worried about the location and the station and getting approval and all that. And when it was all said and done, when we were shooting down in the subway and got into the train car, the conductor who was, driving the train somehow found out what we were doing and started flickering the lights. He was actually flickering the lights. Like the lights were going on and off. And then he came over the intercom and he was like, "I see what you guys are doing. I just wanted to help."
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's so cool.
And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?"
We're not even supposed to
We're
be
blessed
here.
by the subway gods right now because, it was amazing.
And to follow up on that, your film is looking forward for a release. Like, that's good news.
Yeah. I'm working with the distributor right now that does TVOD services, streaming services, stuff like that. So we'll see. We're hoping to get it on Apple TV next year. So
Excited.
it'll be really
And
exciting.
That's such a great story about you going all along and doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned about the actor. I made this film last year called Bubblegum. It's about a musician playing on the piano.
Yes.
Okay, I shot it on an iPhone 12. And this story where she's playing the tune, like she's playing a Mozart tune on the piano. And for some reason, it wasn't syncing properly in the edit because I took a lot of cuts. Like I took it from a different angle.
Yeah.
And I kind of played it at the end. So I took the music from YouTube, like a sample. And I just kind of added that to it. And I showed it to my actor, and she is like, she saw the entire film and she's like, the ending part, it looks like you've taken it from the YouTube because I can't hear my piano keys being played. Like there's this sound when you play, like your fingers as well make a noise.
Production audio.
Yeah. So what she did was she recorded the entire tune again.
Oh, nice.
On
That's nice of
piano
her.
and sent it to me and told me, you can put that in.
That's
and she
so
recorded
funny.
like three versions of it to just give me room to work on it.
I had a similar thing with Jim. There's a lot of scenes where he's down in the subway and he has to yell. And we didn't really want to do that when we were on location because even though it looks like these subway stations are completely empty, they were not empty. It's one of the busiest subway stations in the world, right? So there's people down there always. And, at one point he had to really yell and he was like, "I don't know if I should yell." I said, "Don't worry. I'm just going to film the back of your head.
Okay.
Just move your arms like you're yelling."
Oh, yeah.
And then weeks later, he was enrolling his children into college. Shout out to Dylan and Ella, his real children who are in the film.
Oh, yes.
He's enrolling them into college. And I'm on the phone with him and I'm like, "Hey, can you, is there any way I could get some sound bites of you yelling?" And he's like, "Okay, give me 1 second." And he went to his car and he recorded into his phone all these voice memos of him screaming and yelling and all this in his car, sent it to me. And that's what's in the film. Everything from his phone, from his...
That's really
So
cool.
sometimes, and nobody noticed, not a single person who's ever seen the film has commented on his audio and said, "Hey, I don't," because there's a lot of things you could add reverb, you can EQ the track in a way to blend in acoustically to the environment. So the reverberation is correct, everything's correct, and it sounds acoustically correct.
That's true.
It's been fun to kind of play with that, after the fact. You're like, "Oh, I wish I had a line right here," or "I want the sound to match up when she's playing," and you can do that now, which is so cool. We don't have DV tape anymore.
I remember. I made 3 short films on iPhone 12. Like, you watched all of them.
Yes.
And, I mean, it went to festivals. It made me feel good that, like, on an iPhone 12, as long as you have the filmmaking sense, like, you have a good story in place, you know how to film it well, and then in the editing, if you can make it come to life, I think that the equipments take a very secondary position. I think people don't care that much about the equipments that you're filming with or like people couldn't tell that I filmed it on an iPhone 12. So
Right.
I think that can get you started, and then slowly you could just have a body of work which gets you more of the things and resources that
Absolutely.
you can work
Concept first, just to convey your idea, whether it's on a phone or your mom's camcorder or your friend's camcorder or something, just to convey the idea. Then once people know your capabilities of telling a story, then the budget will come later. But really quick, I want to make a point about this, about gear. And I feel like the internet, especially YouTube, is saturated with all this gear content. And we see it everywhere, every YouTube channel, every creator, and shout out to them. I mean, they're doing great work. I watched a lot of creators. Marcus Pix, shout out to Marcus Pix, one of my favorite YouTube creators ever.
I used to watch D for Darius. Like
D for Darius?
He has a filmmaking channel. And Film Riot.
Film Riot? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Film Riot, I have been watching for seriously 15 years.
Me too. Shout out to Film Riot.
Film Riot is the best, man.
Yeah.
Film Riot, yeah. Wow.
Go on.
Indie Mogul. Do you remember Indie Mogul? Do you remember Indie Mogul? Okay.
No.
This was like 2007, 6, YouTube, early YouTube filmmaking. Indie Mogul. I think that became Film Riot. That probably is not true, but that's what I think. In my mind, that's the way it is. Okay. But another note about gear is like, you see all these YouTubers talking about cameras and lenses and, you got to get the Helios, you got to get this, or you got to get this lens, or the most important thing after story, okay, after actors, is lighting. That's just my personal experience of what I've learned. Because you can use your iPhone 12, but if your lighting is flat or overlit,
I agree.
No one's going to want to really watch that for too long. It might be straining their eyes, it might be this. But like at NYFA, we were given these old RE tungsten lights that are amazing. And they do get very hot, so you have to wear some gloves. You have to take some safety precautions when you use these old lights, okay? But you can go on Facebook Marketplace, you can go on eBay, and you can buy these lights. You could probably get 2 of them for $100. And these are old industry standard movie lights. These are really good lights. RE tungsten lights, you could probably get, a 300 watts. And they look better than LED lights. And look up a couple of YouTube lighting tutorials and you're set. You can use your phone. You can use anything. Cinematic mode on iPhone is great with tungsten lights. Yeah, man. There's a lot of content about cameras and not so much about lighting. I'm starting to see more of it now and the importance of lighting in cinematography, but that's just a huge thing, a huge note for anyone watching.
That's interesting. And it's also tough.
Yeah.
To light a set well.
Yeah.
It's tough. It requires so much effort and sense. That's a really interesting point.
It's getting easier. Like I do use LED sometimes. Like I'll use little 60-watt LED lights that run on 2 Sony batteries, and you can put them anywhere. Like I was doing a music video a couple weeks ago, and we were in a house with limited power and stuff. So I was able to. We were in a basement shooting this scene. Have you seen the Idiot Face music video?
No.
Okay.
No.
We released it on Halloween, so it was like a Halloween horror vibe, and it's this guy going through a basement with a flashlight, and I had to put lights everywhere. I used we went crazy with the lighting, and a lot of them were little LED lights with batteries, and it ran all night. It was amazing. So.
Did you do it yourself?
Yeah. No crew.
And where did you study? Like, if a person wants to study how to light up a set, could you tell us how?
YouTube, man.
Really?
Well, YouTube really cool. And,
Practice.
because of New York Film Academy and because we learned how to use these tungsten lights, I bought some. I went to a rental house that was closing and I bought up their tungsten lights. I got 4 of them. Not expensive. And I just started playing with them in my apartment. I would film myself, just as I did when I was 13 and 14 years old. I was doing the same thing at 29, 28, whatever. And I'm 30 now. So bit of a
That's
milestone.
good.
But yeah, honestly, you learn by doing. You could watch 8 hours of YouTube videos, of lighting videos, but you really have to try it yourself.
So you have to do it.
You really do, because that's what I learned. Like, a lot of the tips are great, and sometimes I'll watch a creator on YouTube that just inspires the hell out of me. I'm like, oh God, I want to do that. Like, I need to do this now. There's this clip of Orson Welles. Of course, I found it on YouTube. There's this clip of Orson Welles talking about how watching too many films is bad for you, and like it saturates your brain. I'm gonna argue that, though. I'm sorry. I have mad respect for this guy. At like 25, he wrote, directed, and acted in one of the best movies, arguably one of the best movies ever made. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm not gonna argue with him, but I do have an opinion that when you watch more and more films and you see more and more cinematographers, it creates an eye. Like, you have an eye, just like a good photographer. After you take thousands and thousands of pictures, your eye is tuned. Like, you now have
Yeah.
a sense of what looks good and what doesn't. And same thing goes for films. Like, I think you can watch hundreds and hundreds of movies and be able to make your own film that looks great because you've seen all these great cinematographers. So yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing to watch a lot of movies.
See. How about you mentioned about the series that you worked on, the Screw Up, and it's like 3 episodes out right
There's
now.
3 episodes. They're out on YouTube. So what it is it's really a concept that we developed for a larger vision from Eric Solomon, the writer. So at NYFA, for my thesis project at NYFA, my final project at NYFA, I was casting and met Eric Solomon. Eric and I became really close, and he came to me with a script for this show and said, hey, I really want to make this show, and I have this pilot idea. And I said, oh my God, man, that's great. Like, I hope you find budget, and I hope you find the right person to direct this or whatever, or, shoot it, right? He's like, no, you're gonna shoot this. Like, we're gonna do this together. And I'm like, are you kidding? I don't have the equipment to do that. I don't have the, because at the time, I think I had just 2 tungsten lights and a camera and just, but we made it happen. We shot a 30-minute pilot with very, very, very limited gear just to show the concept. And then people loved it, and we decided to make another episode. And then we got to the 3rd, and then now we have an hour and a half of episodes to kind of show this whole show, and we're currently pitching it to networks. So we'll see, but
Okay. I want to break this down for a better understanding. So you were at a point where you just had 1 camera and 2 tungsten lights.
Yep.
And I mean, it's filmed very beautifully.
Oh,
and
thank you.
there are scenes which take place in a bar, right?
Yeah, most of it is in a bar. That was kind of the general idea. That was Eric's vision. He's been a bartender, I think, for like 15 years. And he, he's worked in bars for a very long time. And the way he conveyed it was the inspiration was Cheers. That was his favorite show growing up, was Cheers. And, The Office, and kind of that documentary feel, but in a bar. And, we hadn't really seen that before, that hybrid before. So I loved the idea and just wanted to get more experience. And
so could you let us know that how did you go about, first of all, getting a bar to film at? And second is, then how did you go about to get the equipments and
absolutely.
it actually
So
ready?
The bar is a bar in Brooklyn that Eric used to work at, and he's close with the owner. And after a couple meetings with the owner, we kind of convinced him to let us make the show there under one condition. And that condition was the owner had to be in the show.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And you know what? He's amazing. Shout out to Dom Tracy. He's great as Professor Lennox in the Screw Up. He's hilarious and such a loved character. So, but as far as equipment, I mean, my biggest concern was audio. What I decided to do, everybody has a phone in their pocket, right? I could go here. I can turn on voice memo, right? I can hide this in a shirt pocket.
Just
That's
cover it.
That's a lav
and
mic.
Then you're good.
Tell the actor not to rustle on it too much. Just kind of stand still. That's a lav microphone right there. That's a free lav mic. And yeah.
Saves you trouble of getting a boom mic.
Yeah.
Saves you trouble of getting a person to operate a boom mic. And
Yeah.
saves you trouble of paying the person to do that.
Right.
Because I've been in that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a great tip.
Yeah. You can get so creative with iPhones. You know, they can be backup microphones. We would take the actors' iPhones and then tuck them under like the table. We put them in the shirt pocket. We put them on a shelf somewhere that they were close to. And then at the end of the shoot, when I'd cut, I'd put my camera down and I'd say, "Okay, airdrop me all the audio." And that's how I did it.
And who edited the series?
I did.
And the reason why I asked is like, how was playing around with the audio then? Like, did you have to work on it a lot, or it wasn't that crazy?
But yeah, I did all the editing in DaVinci Resolve because everything's natively a DaVinci Resolve workflow, right? Shooting on Blackmagic cameras, taking it into DaVinci Resolve Studio. So everything was done there. And Blackmagic RAW is such a malleable codec and format. I like to grade first
I see.
because I hate looking at flat raw
Yeah,
footage. It
I
drives me up a
agree.
wall. I hate
Yeah,
it.
I agree.
People are like, you grade first? That's crazy. But I like to develop because, you know, in my childhood brain, thinking about shots, thinking about imagery, and the visually I'm someone who's visually stimulated.
I see.
So I have to have that visual stimulation, and then in order to get the sound and design the sound. So for Train of Thought, there's a lot of cool visuals and things like that. And I would establish the visual tone first and then do the sound design because it just,
I see.
sound design always pretty much comes later. Like you when you get to your edit, you have what you've shot, but you don't have your sound design yet.
I see.
So that's the first thing you have. So, it kind of sets the stage visually for what you can then build with sound design. So I wanted this droning, cavernous, vast scale subway station, and I had to create that with sound design.
I see.
And then, add the song and all that stuff.
Okay, getting more technical.
Yeah.
Before that, I'd like to ask you, the Screw Up is available on YouTube, right?
So as of recording this, the Screw Up, all 3 episodes are on YouTube right now at the Screw Up series.
Okay, I have a question about sound, all right? I mean, the only thing I wanted to ask you right now is about sound design, because that's very overwhelming for a person. So that's the point I want to touch before we move on, because I think we touched up on everything, right from the filming to the editing to getting the lighting done properly. The last bit, which I would like your insights on, is the sound.
Yeah.
From where do you get it? How is your process of designing sound?
It's, again, this goes back to technology and how technology is changing. Now we have like 32-bit float little handheld recorders. Like the Zoom F3, which we're actually using now, is a great device that you can throw in your pocket. You can go down to the subway station with a little boom microphone and record really, really high quality wave files, 32-bit float of the subway going by. So I did that a lot. I went to a lot of train stations and recorded a lot of sound myself because I would dig into libraries. I'm on Soundstripe, I'm on Epidemic Sound, I'm on Artlist, all those. But sometimes the sounds just weren't what I wanted, so I'd go record them myself, or.
And for the background score, like background music?
For the score, Artlist.
I see.
Artlist is, we're going to sound like we're sponsored right now, but we're not.
Artlist
is a great place to use to get all your sound. No. Have you used Artlist? I love it.
Artlist.io
Yeah, it's essentially a giant library for footage, for
I've used
music. I really sound like I'm doing an ad reading, but I'm not, I swear. I really do love Artlist though. And Artlist, if you're watching this, you have a great platform and I love it. And the voiceover feature is great too. It's brand new.
And the things I've used, first of all, royalty-free music on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Because I've found what I was looking for in my films on those platforms. The second is there are particular websites when you kind of look into Google, and I don't remember the name, but I remember just listening to the sounds at various websites, at various free websites, which I don't remember the name. But I remember just finding one good sound and then taking one sound from this particular library and then just kind of just navigating through the surfaces. So I think that has really helped me in my films.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would try Artlists and one of those sound libraries too, because sometimes you just need a sound effect of a door closing. Or you just need footsteps, or you just need, someone getting out of bed and the bed springs, or whatever it is. I mean, that's where I found everything. I'm just going to be honest with our audience because you guys should know. Get an Artlist subscription and you'll be fine. So, yeah.
I think we touched base about how you went about in deep diving into every aspect of filmmaking that you went through to make your movie.
Yeah, I feel like we covered a lot, talking about the importance of story over gear and the importance of gear over lighting, because those are things that have kind of a hierarchy, and that and not that it's written in stone anywhere, but these are things that I've personally experienced and realized, like the hierarchy of lighting is so important over a camera. And story is important. So important. Over everything.
And I feel it's so difficult to write a good story which could be filmed. We just can't write Interstellar for the sake of writing it and not be able to film it. I mean, we are filmmakers who write to kind of convert it into a movie.
What did Hemingway say? The first draft is always shit.
It's always shit. That's so true. That's so true. I've been reading Hemingway these days. I just read a short story by him.
Oh my God, so good.
That's so true.
Yes.
So I think. So how do you get better at writing good stories? What's your?
Well, the first draft of Train of Thought was essentially just my dream. It was like a guy who was 29 years old, going into a subway station that was somehow in his apartment, subconsciously in a dream, right? And he gets on the train and it's him on the train. And that was my idea. That was my big idea. And I wrote the whole script, and he didn't even have a name. It was just called The Protagonist because I saw Tenet or thought that was cool or something. And and I showed that to a couple people, and they're like, okay, this is interesting. And then, I think I had 7 more drafts after that. I rewrote the script 7 more times.
Wow, that's a lot of...
Because I was making it better every time. And each time I was writing a layer, another layer. And I call it the lasagna. The story's like the lasagna. You got to get the sauce, and you got to get this. You got to get the cheese and the meat and you just keep layering it until you feel like it's ready to come out of the oven. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying.
That's interesting. That's really cool. And then there's so much of hard work to write the film, but then you also go back
I
after
love
your
writing.
premiere.
That's so much fun.
Me too.
Yeah.
I love writing.
It's so much fun. When you start to I feel like with writing, you tap into a certain space at a certain point when you're on a roll where the characters are just talking and you're just hearing them talk.
Yeah.
And it's almost like it's transcendent and they're just giving it to you.
That's
amazing.
So true. And of course, I remember Tarantino saying this, that at the start, you're letting the characters do the work, but up to a point.
Yeah.
After that, the characters take on their own life and you're just recording what they are saying. It's not you that is making the characters do a thing. It's the characters doing it by themselves and you're just kind of noting it down.
And I'm writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you
Yep.
know,
Yep.
I mean, I've heard such great writers say this. I mean, great screenwriters, great storytellers. I mean, it's so amazing to be at a spot where, you know, like you're just flowing with the characters. Like you
Yes.
can just visually see them make decisions, go about their
Mhm.
thing. And I think that's where you feel this is so authentic. Like it's not like you who's writing it, but
Yeah.
it's just like it's happening. It's just creation. I feel that's a really important.
It's like a high, right? It's like it's like your mind goes somewhere else. It's like you're kind of floating in a way.
yeah.
It's amazing. I love that. And then you look at it the next day and you're like, what the fuck did I write? It's terrible. No, I'm just kidding. That's happened to me a couple times where I think it's amazing. And then the next day I'm like, oh my God, this is so corny and so bad, this dialogue. But, you know, and that's even happened on set. You get to set and you have someone read it and you're like, well, I don't know, man. But, you know, yeah, man, it's just trial. It's just going out, getting out there and just doing it and trying it. You know, with all of it. There's so many aspects to filmmaking, from pre-production to production to post and
Casting.
oh my God, yeah, there's so much, man.
So much to do.
There's so much. We were talking about this earlier. When you make a film, right? You really have to write it 3 times. You write it in the screenplay, and then you write it with a shot list, and you kind of, sometimes when you're on location, there's a shot that you didn't get. I know when I was in the train station one night for Train of Thought, half the shot list I didn't get.
That's
Because
crazy.
just couldn't get it. We're actually thrown out, but, you know, couldn't get it. Couldn't get half the shot list, had to change the story. Okay, well, you know, this happens now. And so that's another rewrite. And then the third rewrite happens in post, because there were several scenes that I shot that you saw at the first screening of Train of Thought that just were taken out. Things that I loved that I thought had to be in there, they didn't have to be in there. And I threw them away, you know. I'll eventually release like some deleted scenes or something because, you know, why not? But I think I cut like 3 scenes that I first really liked. But anyway, so yeah, that's what I mean by writing a film 3 times. It's like you write it in, you know, the first draft, the first time you write it is a screenplay. The second time is shooting, and then the third time you write the movie is in the edit. And yeah,
and
it's
you can
so
do
hard
all
to do.
of it. You can do all of it yourself, like including me. Like that's how we've grown up. So that's such
the thing. Like,
advantage for
Yeah.
us, right?
it's a really important note for our audience. Like, Om and I both work full time. Yet we still make films.
Yeah.
still do
find
casting.
the time.
We still edit. We still do all of it ourselves. Because it's the passion, right? Like, that's what drives you forward is, you know, the love for this and the craft is just like, for me, I can't turn it off. A lot of people are like, why are you doing this now? Everyone's making films. Everyone's making content. Why are you doing this now? And I'm like, okay, first of all, I've always done this.
Yeah.
Okay, whether you've known it or not. For me, I've known it in my heart that this is what I love to do and this is what I do. And I just can't turn it off. So,
I mean,
sorry.
I
Can't
think
change it.
I think that's the idea of this podcast, where it's just 2 friends who have made films and who've kind of gone through things so far in their journey of just making the first film and then going about making films as often as they can,
Yeah.
and then just talking about their process, what works for them. Like something that works for you might not necessarily work for other people, but I feel this is something that is just cool to share and talk about, because, like, I mean, I'm sure that some of them at least face similar issues, if not all of them. But I mean, I come across a person who is not able to kind of write his films well. So, you know, what could that person do? Or a person who's just waiting for a gear, let's say, like waiting for a fancy camera just to start filming.
Right.
So I
it's
think
a very common misconception.
Yeah. So
I think I've even fallen guilty to that like, oh, I can't start making this thing until I have this softbox or this light or this thing. And that's, You're right. That should not hold you back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't make a 13 or 15-minute film unless I have like 6 people working with me. Like, even that's not
Mhm.
true. Like, I mean, you don't.
Very much not true. Yeah.
So I think these are some cool things which I felt that
Mhm.
we both should kind of just address it.
Yeah.
Since, I mean, I know we are still early in our careers. We are still in the process of discovering
Yeah.
our style, getting ahead. But I think at this juncture, there's like people who are still kind of could resonate with what we are saying. So
Mhm.
I feel that's a really cool thing to that we spoke about all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to ask you about your newest film, Daisy, It's Your Birthday. Tell me about making it. Tell me about shooting it. What gave you the idea?
I was writing a script. I mean, I have a habit of writing almost every day. So
Oh, wow. Every
I-
day.
almost every day.
Wow.
Not for long, but just like
Yeah,
for an
yeah.
hour or something. So I was just writing and I thought about 2 parallel stories. Like the girl, it's her birthday, she's waiting at home for her partner to kind of come home and celebrate her birthday together. And right now it's in festivals. It won an award at the New York International Film
Yes,
Awards.
yes, I saw
So-
that. Congratulations, man.
so
It's
I'm
exciting.
happy for that. And yeah, it was really cool. We got the crew, the actors were incredible. Yeah, it was really cool. I am delighted with the response that it got. It's
Yes.
not out yet, but
Was there something from your life experiences that you pulled from to write this film? Like, did you have a kind of a Daisy in your life? Like, are you Jim?
I mean, I don't know
I
at
know.
what point does that click. Can you
Yeah.
recall, like, for the films that you made, that this is the moment, like, this is the script that I want to film?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I've met people and they're talking to me and I'm kind of a bright, light, sort of silly, funny person. And I think they expect me to really serious, dramatic person because Train of Thought is kind of serious and dramatic. And I'm like, oh no, I'm a goofball. Like I'm so silly. And that's just can catch people off guard because, the material sometimes doesn't have to match the person.
Yeah.
Like Stephen King could be a really jolly guy. I don't know. He writes some pretty crazy stuff, but
Crazy stuff.
maybe he's wild. I don't know. I haven't met him, but that's why I ask you. Like,
Yeah.
Does your film directly correlate with what happens in it to an experience you've had or something like that?
Not necessarily the experiences that I've had, but the experiences that I've seen around. So I think, like, let's say Daisy, it's her birthday. I know that this somewhere I have picked it up. Maybe it could be a friend.
Right.
Maybe Daisy is a boy who's a friend of mine in like some years ago who was just mad because nobody showed up on his birthday or something like that. So I think somewhere it's there. I mean, when I made Bubblegum, it's just about a girl who is unable to blow up a bubblegum.
Mhm.
And then we realized that she always wanted to be a musician, but she couldn't do that. And once she learns how to do one thing, she goes back and kind of, she's just mastered
other.
the art of learning how to do a thing.
Yes.
So I feel that not necessarily that it has happened to me, but
Yeah.
these are the things that I have picked up.
But it's a
from somewhere.
character overcoming a challenge, and maybe that's something. I mean, we've all done it, right? And that's something maybe that directly correlates with maybe a challenge you were overcoming when you decided to write the idea or something, right?
Sure,
Yeah.
that could so be.
So
I
now
mean,
with Train of Thought, I was going through a bad breakup at the time, where those dreams started happening, right? I had my own trauma and questioning happening internally. therefore had these dreams, and my subconscious was in a different state than my conscious self, and that made me want to make a story about that. Like, what if your conscious was totally separate from your subconscious, you know, and the part of, what if there's a part of you that is completely asleep, you know, that used to be awake years ago, but is asleep, and maybe that voice can come back within a dream. So that was kind of the roots of that. But yeah,
I see. It's just so many ways people approach. So do you write? How's your writing process, right?
I usually start with outlines. And like, I'm working on a feature right now. And shout out to Seth Dieter, my colleague. We've worked together on a lot of projects, from commercial work to brand films, to corporate stuff. And now we're getting into writing our first feature film. It'll be a debut feature film for both of us, and we really started with outlines, just bullet points of, you know, where we want the story to go, scene by scene, and then now we're diving into those bullet points and writing out entire scenes.
Sure.
So yeah, we want it to be a full length feature, and yeah, that's kind of been my process. I usually start with, sometimes I'd be walking through a train station and I think of a shot, or I think of a scene, and I just pull out my phone and jot it down real quick. Like, oh, this would be perfect, or this location should be where this scene happens. And you know, you kind of, being a New Yorker, you know, like, you just kind of take the train and you're going around and you'll see something and you'll be like, oh, this will be perfect for this scene. So I write like that too, like, I'm very inspired by location.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is access, because as an indie filmmaker, we don't have access to a lot of places. So if you can get something for free, like a subway station, you didn't hear it from me.
You can make a story around it.
Sometimes you make a story around public places, like a park, or, you know.
You know, that's so interesting, because I feel like for Daisy, it's your birthday, I had access to my school, like where I did my master's.
Is that where you shot all that office stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask you where you shot all that.
And because, like, I can access it, I know the ins and outs of it. There's like, there are places where you can change, where you can get into character. There's like a big school. So I feel, since you mentioned it, I feel first I went to the location and I shortlisted it. And then I felt that, what can I do? Okay, I can have a college student, or I can have a person who's working. So I feel gym kind of came from there. And then what else did I have? I had a big home with a good living room. So I thought, okay, maybe I can just have the girl there.
That was a nice house you shot at.
Yeah.
Is that your place?
I mean, I still
you don't have
live
to say
there.
it. You don't have to say yes or no. Yeah.
I feel that is something that kind of helped me. And also that I think about it, I feel the mall story, Springtime in New York, I feel I first shortlisted a mall, or it worked both ways. Like, I guess when I looked for a while and then I finally got a mall, I feel then the story also took a different shape. So yeah, that's really interesting, where you can work backwards as well.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you get to a location and the thing that you thought would be there, like from your scouting last week, is like closed down and under construction, and now it's like the day of shooting and you're there and you're, oh, we can't use that. Okay, well, what's over here? Okay, well, we have this, you know. And you know, you almost have to be like a jazz musician when you're doing indie filmmaking and you're on set. You have to improvise, you have to be on the beat and on the rhythm of what can we do next. And you know, that's my high. That's where I get this adrenaline rush of ideas, when my back's against the wall, 100 things are going wrong. Everyone's asking me questions. I'm supposed to know the answers. And I have to be a military drill sergeant 1 second, and then a loving, caring mother the next second, where I have to get to my actor and make sure they're okay and they're in a good place vulnerability wise and they're comfortable. And then I also have to give orders and have this militant, authoritative answer to everything, saying, nope, guys, we're going to take the crew this way, we're going to move 2 blocks down, or whatever it is. So, you know, directing can be can be really tough,
Yeah.
and it's not for the weak.
It's really not.
Yeah, man, it's tough job. So
It's a tough job.
yeah, we just slid into directing there. I don't know how that happened, but
Yeah,
tell me
I
more
feel-
about Daisy. Like, where can people see it? I'm just gonna call it Daisy. Does that work? Can we
Yeah.
just call it Daisy?
That's
Okay.
Well, right now, it's in the festivals. I'm on the fence about releasing it on YouTube yet or
Mhm,
no,
mhm.
because I want to give it a few months
Yeah,
to
of course.
have
Yeah.
the movies festival run, and maybe then I kind of have a few things to show for
Yeah.
what the movie did. And let's see, and if nobody is interested, then there's this YouTube where everybody can see it.
Yeah, there you go. I mean,
But
it's
I'll
such a
like
good
to-
alternative, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, to find an audience, and obviously I'm biased, and I like having my film play in theaters, right? And I'd love to see your
Yeah.
film in a theater too. So film festivals, obviously going to be the best choice for now.
Sure.
But yeah, I'd love to see it up on YouTube, because then anyone anywhere in the world could watch it. You know, your friends back home
Sure.
where you grew up could see it. You open it up to a worldwide audience, you know. YouTube can be a great platform too for just educating yourself on your audience. And I'll
Mhm.
explain what I mean. Because when I had the first draft of Train of Thought, I put it up on YouTube, and I got to see the analytics
Mm.
of geographically where my audience was. And like 80% of my audience was in India. And I got to see, wow, okay, this film is doing really well in India. Okay, amazing. I like that. That's really cool. And I was using it as a tool. So then I took it off YouTube and I went to film festivals. And I targeted film festivals where my audience was, India. And yeah, I think we won like 8 film festivals in India, like right in a row. And it was just amazing. And I almost felt like I had a cheat code unlocked because I was able to use YouTube as a way to find my audience and then cater to that audience and, you know,
Sure.
deliver it directly to who was appreciating the film. And I don't know if the people who were watching just felt that New York was like, wow, New York, you know, it's such a novelty.
It is.
Or what? I mean,
Yes.
in India, is New York City considered like, wow, that's New York City, that's huge, that's such a big, great city? Like, what's the perspective? If you could give your own perspective on it growing up, did you ever know you were gonna wind up living in New York when you were growing up in Mumbai?
You know, that's such you know, like, I mean, to be honest, like, when I was making films in Mumbai, and Mumbai is in a lot of ways similar to New York. I mean, in
Yeah,
the way that I
right.
mean is that there are people hustling around and all of that. So in that way is what I mean. So I used to tell my friends in 2018, this may sound crazy, I swear I'm not lying, like really. I used to tell my friends in 2018 that, you know what, remember this, I'm gonna go to New York and make films on my own. Like,
Wow.
I swear I'm not lying.
Really?
Yeah.
2018 is when I moved here too.
Oh,
That's
so,
funny.
like, I
Yeah.
really mean that. So I remember, and it just happened that we studied together at the New York Film Academy. We
Yes.
made films in the city. But I feel that's the perception throughout the world, I feel. Because there's just so much of energy here, young filmmakers, there's so much of hustle.
Yes.
You get things done easily. Maybe including me, I don't feel that way as much as I should now, because I've been
Mhm.
here since a few years now. And you feel kind of like New York helped you in kind of you being able to put out your work or take this career more seriously or something like that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I had a phone call with my father on my right after my 29th birthday. And I was like, Dad, I just turned 29 and I'm going to be 30 next year. And like, I've worked in my industry for like 13 years, which is great. I'm very grateful to work in tech and have a job and be able to pay my bills and eat and everything. I'm extremely grateful for that. But I want to make movies. And I don't know what to do. And my dad's on the other end of the phone in Seattle, and he's in his 70s, and he said, "You're gonna blink and be 70, and you're gonna potentially still be asking yourself the same question, like, you know." He's like, "You're gonna blink and be 70, and you're gonna have regret. So you better go try it. You better go try it right now." And I hung up with him, and I literally pulled out my laptop, typed in like film school, and the first thing that came up was New York Film Academy. I raced through the application because I was terrified. And I got a phone call like 15 minutes later from the New York Film Academy office in LA, and they said, "Hey, the New York office is closed, but we're open. You've got 30 minutes. Send us all your paperwork. We'll have you in on Monday." It was
crazy.
Friday night, and I got into NYFA. I met you, and my whole life changed like that night after that phone call with my dad.
True.
Yeah.
You know,
Shout out to my dad.
That's such a cool story. That's really, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, man. It was amazing because to me, I knew I loved making movies as a kid, and I knew like I still would get ideas all the time, but I thought like, oh, that dream's gone, you know, which was so sad. It felt like part of me was dying. It really was like, oh my God, it was awful. So if anyone's feeling that, if anyone's feeling like they love movies, but they can't figure it out or they can't do it, just like find people who do love it. Find people who will support you and understand your vision and help you get there. Facebook is amazing for that. I'm a part of so many Facebook groups, especially in New York. And I'm sure even in Seattle now, in a place where I know you were saying it was hard to meet other filmmakers, there's probably a Facebook group of filmmakers there. You can always find your community. There's New York Filmmakers Meetup. And we meet up at a bar every couple weeks, and we chat and we hang out, and you know, there's community for this stuff.
Yeah.
Have you been to? We'll go to I'll take you to a mixer.
Sure.
There's a bunch of filmmaking mixers all the time.
You know, you mentioned this. Like, I mean, it was just tough for me to make a movie in Seattle because like it's not as accessible as New York is. But I was part of the Seattle Writers Group.
Really?
It was really good. Where you know, every weekend, once a week, you just write throughout the week, and then on that night you present what you've written.
Oh, that's so
and
cool.
It was like such great feedback to what you're writing, and there are like people who have published novels who are on that group.
Wow.
Yeah, so
And this was for screenwriting or for?
It was for stories, like whatever you'd like to write, but it could also be like write your own screenplay. I mean, I remember narrating a screenplay at the meetup. And just, you know, getting some feedback that, okay, maybe we need another character here to kind of make it more clear or something like that. Yeah. But I remember every week, that's where I started to kind of get a grip on writing. So I so agree to those meetups that you mentioned. I was part of a New York Short Film Club meetup before New York Film Academy, where I worked with them, and it's like, you know, a group which gets together. Yeah. Somebody writes a script and they all work together and get the film made. So, yeah, I'm a huge fan of such groups. I think joining such things really help you and make you feel confident. Absolutely. Or not confident, but still you can just work hard and, you know, hang out with those folks and learn from them.
Right. And you can also just apply for a class. Like Om and I met in a 12-week program at New York Film Academy that was through the duration of the entire winter. It was 3 months, January to March. And it was designed specifically for people who worked full-time. So it was an evening class. And how amazing was that we could work full-time at our job. It was really hard. They call these classes intensive for a reason, because, you know, you go to work, you don't go home, you go straight to the Film Academy, and then you work till about 10 o'clock at night, and then you come home at 11.
Sure. And on weekends you're filming.
And on weekends you're filming for 3 months. You are shooting.
Oh my God.
But my God, did I love it. I would do it again.
It was so cool. And, you know, funny story, like, you know, I remember I was just walking around New York, and my goal was always to enroll in a master's program in a film school.
Wow.
And I just saw NYFA for the first time. Not for the first time, but like I just came across this NYFA board and I'm like, why not just go and see what's about it? I just wanted to ask about, okay, I'm going to enroll after 2 years maybe for a master's program. What are the fees? What are the scholarships? And then the person goes, you know, you can enroll right now. There's an evening course there.
Wow.
This really happened. And I'm like, are you serious? Like,
that's how you found out.
Yeah. And the timing of it was crazy because I remember walking around in December and our course started from Jan. Like the 12-week program. So I remember just meeting them in December. I'm like, yeah, I'd like to enroll it from next month. So that's how we met, and it's been crazy. Like even my life changed after New York Film Academy. Like the actors that I cast in my films, I'm still friends with them.
Yeah.
It's been 1.5 years, but still we still hang out.
Yeah, the connections you make. I personally didn't go to college, you know, so I never had that experience. So I felt like I didn't have a lot of friends throughout my 20s and this and that, especially when I moved to New York because I didn't know anybody. I felt very alone for a very long time, actually. And it wasn't until I went to NYFA where I met some bunch of great people that all loved what I loved. Yeah. And I was like, oh, my people.
That's so cool.
Movie people.
I remember that feeling. Everyone is so tired by the end of the night.
Yeah.
But still loves it so much that they're always, you know, around.
Dude, I want to do it again.
Yeah.
And I wish I would have done it sooner. I really do. Because I'm 30 now, and it's like, damn, like I could have been in NYFA when I was 22. But here's the thing. I don't really think I was ready. Because to direct films and to write films, I think you really do need some life experience. Now, that's a controversial topic, and that could be debated. But I feel like to really write a really complex story with a lot of emotion and a lot of character, and to build characters that are believable, that are going through turmoil and crisis and all this stuff. And your films don't have to have that kind of stake, but in order to write these complex characters, I feel like you need to have lived and been through a lot of shit. You know what I mean? So I feel like I had to have those life experiences. And I went through a lot. We won't get into that. But I feel like that helped me be a better writer. So I feel like me at 20 would not have made the, you know, critically acclaimed films that I'm writing now. You know what I mean? I feel like they would not have been the same. So.
Sure. You know, our professor, like, I don't remember who it was, but I remember this being said in class that, okay, if you have like a lot of money to make a movie, spend some of it to just go somewhere and get experiences in life. Like, you know, like just maybe do something, get new experiences so that you have an interesting story to tell maybe, or something that you like to incorporate in your work. So I think that's also a good point to be said.
Yeah.
It's really cool. NYFA was fun.
Oh my
God,
it's so
much fun.
If anyone is hesitating on enrolling in a film class, and if you love movies and if you really want to work hard, just do it, man. Just do it. It's worth the tuition. I usually debate people on college and stuff like this, but not for, if you love it, there's no question. There's no question. Yeah. Just don't put yourself into like 130 grand in student loans. That's not worth it. Sure. But if it's just a 12-week class, just to get the ball rolling, or even a 1 week, honestly. They have a 1 week intensive at New York Film Academy. And I considered that, but I went, no, I really want to sink in, and I'm really glad I did. What's your next project? What's the next thing you're going to work on?
I'm writing a feature film. I feel that I am at a stage where I need to expand my work and kind of just be in a position where I'm able to write, direct a feature film. It's a thriller. It's about a musician who wants to make an album and make it as a musician, but due to some things he's unable to do it. So I think it's about that. So far I've written enough which could be made into a 1 hour film, but that's something that's my goal for the next year.
Your characters, I know 2 of them now are musicians. Is this something that like you feel connected to personally? Like, are you a musician yourself?
I mean, I play the guitar. I used to. I mean, I just know the basic chords, but nothing crazy. But I feel like musician is a good choice because I don't know. Yeah, you could say that I feel a bit connected.
Yeah,
the other
definitely.
person who I would like would be a writer.
I play guitar
Like-
too.
That's really cool.
We should jam sometime. Maybe next time we'll do this, we'll have 2 guitars
Two
and
guitars.
we'll just jam it out.
And just play something in between whenever you're bored.
Yeah. Whenever there's silence, we'll just just strum a G chord real quick.
And then get in the zone again.
Yeah.
So I feel a bit more connected to the musician's life, I guess. But I feel on a broader note, it could be related to any artist in general. Like a writer wants to get their work published. Like a musician wants to have an album out. A filmmaker wants to make a movie which is like into theaters. So
Right.
I think on a broader note, it's about an artist's life. And yeah, that's something that I've been working on.
Sweet. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Well, thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for...
You want to close it out? What do you think?
Yep. Well, it was great chatting with you and just so much of things that we covered. Even I'm not sure what we spoke about for this long, but it was so much fun.
So much fun, man. I'll let my agent know, next time. Next time you should get some more
Sure.
trees. No, I'm just kidding.
Sure.
Thank you. And thanks for having me on your show. I love talking movies and making movies and talking about it with you. So anytime you want to do this, I'm around.
Sure. Same here. Like,
Yeah.
let's see what's the reception, but I think we did enough.
I think we
Yeah.
got a solid episode here.
So, let's see.
Bye, everybody.